Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, this is Jason from Prodogz Dog Training. How are you guys this morning? It's a beautiful day here in Southern Oregon. Hey, so this morning is not a direct question I received, but it's this question I was directed to on Facebook. A local radio station put out a message on their Facebook page talking about their dogs and crate training, and one of my friends said, hey, you know what, you ought to talk to Jason. And then it kind of got me thinking, hey, wait a minute, I've never done a video on crate training and the proper ways to crate train a dog. So I thought I'd talk about that this morning. So let's jump right into it. So a lot of times when people start by crate training, I think they go about it the backwards way. Usually what people do is they take the dog, they throw it in the crate, lock the door, and usually they just leave. And they kind of expect the dog to acclimate just naturally to it. But think about it a little backwards. If I put you in a box and walked away, and you didn't understand why you're in the box, how to get out of the box, or even what the box is all about, you just somebody threw you in a box, you'd kind of panic too, right? You'd probably try to find little ways out. You would do your best to yell, scream, get somebody's attention, maybe even bang on the door. Well, in retrospect, that's really what a dog does when we do that to a dog. If we take a dog, throw it in the crate, what's the dog do? The dog scratches at the door and the dog screams and yells. Now you're probably thinking, wait a minute, okay, I've had a dog and that's what I did and it worked for my dog. You're right, not all dogs are the same. Some dogs can handle it a little bit better. Some dogs will say, hey, no problem, I know you're going to my owner's going to let me out, and, okay, I'll kind of accept it. Either that, or when the dog's like really young, let's say a puppy, puppy maybe throws a fit, but then they sometimes get acclimated. But a lot of cases, what happens is we add stress to the crate. All of a sudden, now the crate appears to be this bad thing that the dog doesn't really even want to go near. And I can understand why. Imagine this. Imagine you put your hand on the hot stove and you burn your hand. Every time you go near that stove, your brain would say, wait a minute, protect itself, and you don't want to go near that stove. Or not necessarily near the stove, but you're not going to want to put your hand on the stove. So if the dog has a bad experience with the crate kind of turns into that stove in your brain, and now the dog says, wait a minute, there's no way I'm going to go to that again. And usually what happens, if you throw the dog in there once or twice and the dog learns this is not a fun experience, then the dog doesn't even want to go near it. Then any kind of coaxing or any kind of training that you'd be able to do is either out the window, or it's going to take you twice as long. So there's a couple recommendations when I refer people to crate trainer. When I talk to people about crate training, the first recommendation is if you have a young dog and you're trying to use a crate training for potty training, don't get a huge crate. Don't get there's all different kinds of numbers, but don't get like a 600 or 700 size crate when you have a Chihuahua. The reason being is when you're crate training, or when you're using your crate for potty training, you want to have a crate where the dog can't go in the corner, urinate or defecate, and then get away from it. This is why crate training works. If we have a small crate that is sized to the dog itself, the dog's going to say, hey, wait a minute, I can't find a little area to get rid of the waste or get the waste away from me. So then it helps the dog learn to hold its bladder. And so that's one of the fundamentals of crate training, or potty training with the crate. So pick the size of crate, that'll be the first step. And the second step is build some trust up with the crate. In other words, like I said, don't just take the dog, throw it in there, lock the door. Play a game. I'd say start with a game. A lot of people say coaxing. You're not really coaxing. Yes, you're trying to build confidence with the crate, and yes, you are coaxing the dog to do it. Imagine if I wanted you to paint my house, and I said, hey, will you come over and paint my house? And you're a really good friend of mine. Yeah, you're probably a good friend of mine. You're thinking, okay, maybe I'll help him out. Yeah, but what if I said, hey, you know what, help me paint my house and I'll take you on a Disney cruise, or I'll take you to the Bahamas? Then you're like, all right, I'm not necessarily paying you to do it, but I am giving you a high incentive, okay? So I would start to play a game with the crate, take some food, toss it in there. The dog goes in, grabs the food, comes back out. That's the key. Don't shut the door right away. Let the dog go in there, come out, grab the food, and then play this game again. Toss the food in, go in, grab the food, come back out. Either that, or the other thing you can do is each morning, take your dog's bowl of food and put it in the back of the crate and just leave it alone. Don't try to help it. Don't try to push it in there. Don't try to coax it. Just teach the dog that, hey, in order to get the food, it needs to go in the crate. The moment it goes in the crate, eats the food, it gets to come back out. Don't shut the door. If I can tell you anything that you take from this video, don't just shut the door on the dog. Because the moment you shut the door on the dog, now the dog says, oh, wait a minute, I know this game. And then there's no amount of reward or coaxing or conditioning that you can do. The dog's going to say, I know that game, okay? So once you get the dog, and this may take, a week or two depending on the dog. Once you get the dog where it's comfortable with going in and out, in and out, in and out, then take 4 or 5 pieces of food, toss it in the crate, hold the door shut. The moment the dog eats the food, the dog turns around, sees the door shut, open the door, let the dog come out, okay? Do it again. Take a handful of food or its food dish, put the food in there, dog goes in, hold the door shut, 2 or 3 seconds, boom, open the door. Don't start putting a marker word. In other words, don't start telling the dog crate until later down the road. It's one of those big things that people do right away. Think about it like this. If I said box and I threw you in the box and I shut the door, as soon as you hear that word box, what are you going to do? However, what if I said the word box and I gave you $100 and only for putting a foot in the door? Now the word box would mean, hey, there's a high reward coming, right? So a lot of times people will tell the dog crate, throw the dog in there, and then that marker word crate now has a negative connotation to it. And the dog says, wait a minute, when I hear that crate word, there's no way I want to go to it. So don't necessarily use the crate word right away. Wait till the dog is confident with going in and out, and you can hold the door shut for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. Then maybe start using the marker word, but don't get in a rush to use it. So once you get where the dog can be in there, you can hold the door shut for, let's say, 20, 30 seconds. You open the door, the dog comes out. Now you can start by doing the same process, but you latch the door and you walk away, and then you immediately come back, open up the door, let the dog come out. And the moment the dog comes out, you reward the dog. You make this game such an important game to the dog that the dog says, wait a minute, I like that door being shut. I like when mom and dad walk away. Because now when mom and dad walk away, I know when they return, I'm going to get a reward. So then the dog will start kind of building up some resilience to the door being shut. It won't build up resentment to the door being shut. The dog says, hey, wait a minute, if I just kind of take this a little bit, I know the moment that door opens, I'm going to get a reward. A little side note here. A lot of times the dog is so exuberant about, coming out of the crate. So to kind of think ahead of time and not create another bad habit, make sure you don't open up the crate until the dog is calm. And it may take a couple seconds, but if you walk to the crate door and the dog is pawing at the crate, trying to get out, just calmly wait for a minute. The moment the dog subsides a little bit, calms down, immediately open the door. Here's where you can give a release marker. You can say free or all done or whatever you want to use. The dog comes out and immediately feed the dog. The other thing you can do is you can also wait for the dog to be calm, and then you can drop food right outside the crate door, open up the crate door. Now the dog comes out, but they're not coming out and bouncing all over you or jumping or running through the house because they're exuberant about being out of the crate. And you can't get on their case for that. I would be exuberant for getting out of my crate if I was in there too. So you can drop food outside the door, open up the door. Now the dog's more calm with getting in or coming out of the crate. Okay, so once you have these fundamentals of the crate really anchored, in other words, the dog really understands it, then it's all about duration. So at first you're only walking away from the crate door, 10, 15 seconds, okay? Now you're maybe going in the kitchen, making a ham sandwich, coming back and opening up the door. Or you're going outside the house, coming back, opening up the door. And it's all about duration. The hard thing about this is every dog is different. The temperament of the dog, in my opinion, really aids it to how well it can acclimate to the crate and how fast it can learn to accept the crate. This method that I'm teaching you is not for everybody. Sometimes there's other little things you can do to help the dog be okay with being in the crate. You can cover up the crate when you leave. You can put some music on. But a lot of times if you have a dog that has a softer temperament or has some anxiety about being left alone, there's almost nothing you can do to ever convince the dog that it's going to be okay. And I know this is kind of weird coming from a trainer, that a lot of people think that we should just have the answer for everything. It doesn't necessarily work like that. Sometimes the dog's temperament overrides any kind of training we can do. And so at that point, you sometimes have to think outside the box. So sometimes maybe the crate is not the best idea for the dog. Maybe if you can figure out a way for the dog to be okay with just being left inside the house and not chew up things. Sometimes you can get like a Kong. It's a dog toy that's on the market. You put peanut butter in it, you freeze it. A lot of people don't know, but you can freeze the Kong, give it to the dog, and it lasts twice as long. A lot of times this helps the dog kind of break through that initial separation anxiety. In other words, if the dog is busy trying to get the peanut butter out of a Kong, you leave. Then by the time the dog's done with the peanut butter in the Kong, the dog's like, oh, mom and dad already left a long time ago. There's no noises, no sounds. And then hopefully they'll be okay until you return. So anyways, hey, I just wanted to shoot a quick video. I hope this answers some of your questions. If you guys have any questions, or if you need any more advice on crate training, I'd love to hear from you. You can look us up online at www.engageyourdog.com. You can also call us at 541-608-2857. If you're looking at this on YouTube, man, if you could subscribe to my channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this on Facebook, hey, if you can hit that like button and like my page, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and you guys have a blessed day and a wonderful morning.